Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome back. Let's get into our Today in History. Today in History, April 20th, 1889. Adolf Hitler is born in Austria. Hitler rose to power in German politics as leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, also known as the Nazi Party. His policies are largely responsible for World War II and the Holocaust. Alright, so obviously this is a person that you guys will recognize considering how much we spoke about him during our World War II unit. And really the impact that he has on history. So I thought it was pretty important to talk about the day that he was born, right? Because without this person, right, what are the odds that World War II would have happened, and then definitely the Holocaust probably never would have happened. Right? So a pretty impactful day in history. Right? Let's do a little review of what you had assigned to you on Friday. So on Friday I gave you a lesson about Brown versus the Board of Education. So I said, how did the Supreme Court rule on segregation in schools in the South? And what you had was these three documents about the Brown versus the Board of Education court case. So here's a little bit of background information that kind of set the stage and talked about what's going on that leads to Mr. Brown actually filing a court case. Next is the legal arguments, right? What is Mr. Brown's lawyer, Thurgood Marshall, arguing, right? Why is he suing the Board of Education? On what legal grounds? What laws does he say that the Board of Education is breaking? Right? And then I asked you, what is the decision, right? What does the court decide following the court case? Right? So you had to fill in your graphic organizer here with information from each one of those sources. Pretty straightforward. So today you guys are going to obviously build upon that. So here you have a do now. I know we haven't really been doing do nows lately with the lessons, but this do now I would like you to do because it connects what you learned about on Friday in that lesson to today, and I'd like to see you bridging that gap there. So please, please, please do this do now. Right? Yes, you have to do the do now. Right? So for your do now, I say in 1954, the Supreme Court heard the arguments for and against the segregation of public schools in the Brown versus the Board of Education case. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in a 9-0 vote that segregation in public schools is inherently unequal and violated the 14th Amendment. However, the court stated schools must desegregate with all deliberate speed. However, no timeline was placed. All right, so as you learned in Friday's lesson, is that Mr. Brown wins his court case, and the Supreme Court decides that segregation in schools is a violation of the 14th Amendment, and it is now illegal. Right? That it says they rule unanimously, meaning that all of them decide together, they agree. And then it says is inherently unequal. Right? That's the idea that we talked about. Is separate but equal ever really equal? That argument that we had when we talked about Plessy versus Ferguson, that if you are saying that two groups of people can't be together, aren't you at the very core of that argument saying that those two groups of people aren't equal? And that's really, this court case decides that, yeah, it's wrong. You can't separate groups of people but say, but you're equal. No such thing as separate but equal. Either you're together or you're not. However, when this court case comes down, it doesn't say it needs to be done immediately on this date, right? They say with all deliberate speed, which is pretty open-ended, right? So the question that I would like you to answer here is, based on this reading and your prior knowledge, what problems might emerge from this ruling, right? So what issues do you think you're going to encounter? And when I talk about prior knowledge, draw upon what we talked about when we did Reconstruction, right? Where we had the passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, where African Americans are granted legal rights under the Constitution, but we see Southern governments kind of finding ways around granting those rights to African Americans, right? They find those loopholes, right? So based on what we know, what has happened in the past, what is the trend that's emerged, what do you think may happen following the Brown versus the Board of Education ruling? And then you guys are going to read a little bit about what happens in actual in actual life, right, in real life circumstances. So your aim is, how did desegregation in schools affect education in America, right? And you're going to look at 3 specific towns, cities, schools, right? And you'll hear a little bit about stories in those areas, right? So the first you'll read about a school in Clinton, Tennessee. The next you'll read about is Little Rock, Arkansas. This one I think is probably the most infamous of all of the desegregation cases. They're a group of people known as the Little Rock Nine. My honors kids should most definitely recognize this. John and Marianne did their National History Day project on it, so you guys have a little bit of background information on that. And in general, maybe some of you have heard of the Little Rock Nine before. Right? So that's pretty important. And then you have Prince Edward County, Virginia. So you're going to read about each of those 3 counties, those 3 cities, towns, whatever you want to say, and what happened specifically in the schools in that area. Okay, pretty straightforward. Just make sure that you are using specific details, because it's important to know what's happening, right? What is the real life scenario that's going on here, right? And then just a reminder that you guys do have this Flipgrid check-in to do. Make sure that is done by Thursday when all of this stuff is due. I do have 4 of you got it done. I mean, obviously I would love to see more of you doing things earlier on, but again, just make sure that they are in by Thursday. Right, so that should be everything. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and of course, as always, stay safe and make good choices. Bye guys.